and welcome to First Alarm Family First, episode 20. I'm Jen Herrera alongside Carolyn Acosta, and it has been a heck of a week. It's hard to put into words what we have accomplished this week. Monday night was our inaugural fundraiser at Runway 84 in Fort Lauderdale. And have we woken up from this dream, Carolyn?
I'm still like in awe of the night. It was so amazing. It was so special to have all the people there that really believe in the cause and they know what we're doing is for our community and it's to bring awareness to this.
Yeah. We're sharing just a few pictures of the evening. So many people from across Miami-Dade as well as Broward County showing up in your husband's honor, Carolyn, and also because they realize that mental health of first responders is important. It matters. It's a problem. It doesn't appear that it's going anywhere. And they also realize they want to help. We're not the only ones out here trying to make a difference.
Yes, no, it was like I said, the support that we had that evening and just along our whole ride through this whole process has been amazing. And I just look forward to the future and I know that there's going to be change.
Yeah. It's lit a fire under us. There's no doubt about it. It's why we are going to continue doing what we're doing. It's why we're going to continue this show. And we have a very special guest for this 20th episode. You want to introduce her?
Yes. Today we're honored to have with us Sheriff Rosie Cordero-Stutz, who has made history as the first Hispanic woman elected sheriff in Florida and the first woman to hold this prestigious position in Miami-Dade County. Welcome on our show.
Thank you so much. And congratulations to the both of you. Sounds like you had an amazing week.
Thank you.
Yes, we did. So can you tell us a little bit about how you started in law enforcement?
Sure. So I started in this county in 1996 in patrol. And I've only worked for the, back then, Metro-Dade Police Department. And then it became the Miami-Dade Police Department. And now it's the Office of the Sheriff. So I have 29 years in law enforcement. I came to South Florida because of the fact that my parents divorced and my dad lived here. So I would spend summers and we lived in Miami Beach. And so it just kind of became my natural second home. So when I, later on, when I graduate college, I did, and I can't really get a job in law enforcement up in New York area. I decided okay, well, I guess we moved to South Florida, my second home and here. And it still took me like another 2.5 years before I actually got on the job. But, I always knew that this was a passion and a calling for me. And when I got on the job, I just really thoroughly enjoyed patrol. I couldn't really, I know this sounds, I tell people this, I'm like, every day is different. You help people every day in a different way. And it was just very fulfilling to me. And so I was very blessed there. And I just kind of started going up the ranks, and I went back to school and got my master's degree in public administration. I've always been a lifelong learner. That's something that I've, always, I think it's important to always push yourself out of your comfort zone and keep yourself fresh. I think it just sitting idle for me, especially, I think it was never really good. I've always been someone like I do something for a while and then I go, okay, what am I doing next?
What's
right?
next?
Yeah. What's next? So I kind of carried that. And that's the other beautiful thing about working for the department of our size, right? We are the largest police department then in the southeastern United States. I have 3,000, almost 3,200 deputies, sworn deputies working for me. And then with the professional support staff, it's almost 4,700. So we're a very large department. But with that, in the profession, it gives you a lot of opportunities to do different things. So in my career, I did things like I was a robbery intervention detail detective. I was an internal affairs sergeant. I was a homicide detective. I did economic crimes. I did public information officer. And then as I got promoted, I did personnel management, which is human resources, hiring, discipline, and things like that, benefits. And then as the higher you get, you start to really be able to command entire areas and units. So, at some point I have pretty much commanded and touched every single
Right,
section
right.
of and that's what I brought to the position when I decided to run for sheriff.
Yeah. And I think that's so important, especially
Mhm.
when it comes to somebody in charge, having a true awareness of what it's like to be in all of those different positions.
Yeah.
Probably why people were really behind you. We know that the sheriff's position is an elected position.
Mhm.
I'm going to let you talk about all of your platforms. What caught my attention because of what we've been talking about the past 8 months. You have, 3 or 4 main ones, I believe, if I remember correctly. But one is the mental wellness of your citizens and how the sheriffs, or the deputies, I should say,
Yeah.
can help the citizens if they do have a mental illness. But it's also the mental wellness of your deputies.
Yeah.
Why, Sheriff, was that one of your legit platforms? Because you could have picked any.
Legit. And so one of the things that I have, recognized in the past several years, our department, we suffered trauma, real trauma as an organization, and then obviously as individuals within that organization. And obviously we can talk about, like, at the national level, the rhetoric of, defund the police, several years ago. You go through that, putting on a uniform and not feeling appreciated for the job that you do. And then you bring it in here, locally to us. We had the tragedy of the bridge collapse, and then we had the tragedy of Surfside. And then, of course, we had the tragedy of our previous director, and that incident. And so for me, if I tell you, and then of course the transition to the office of the sheriff, because nothing more in life is put someone in turmoil than not knowing what their future looks like, investing years and years of your life and being unsure as to whether or not you have a job that pays your bills and takes care of your family. So for me, it was really important to be able to bring some sense of security back to the office of the sheriff, to the deputies, and to all the employees. And you're right, I did look at it as an outward to the community and an inward to us. And on the inward side, I'll tell you that I immediately kind of hit the ground running after getting sworn in. We reorganized a bit, and as of now, we have our Psychological Support Services Bureau, which will probably get renamed something.
That's a lot to say, Sheriff.
But one of the things that I've done is I'm putting them directly under my command. And I know that sounds like, isn't that normal? Yes and no. What happens is along the way it grew, right? And it was small, and then it has just grown over the years. We've been blessed with one of the few organizations in this country that has their own internal psychological support for their employees. And we've had them for many years, and they continue to evolve. And in that evolution, we join them with the external part, the crisis response unit, which is we respond to calls of individuals in crisis, and it's a co-responder model with a law enforcement officer alongside a counselor. And we are able to provide them support and resources right there, and follow up right through case management. So that's a great way in how we deal with, but all that kind of got bundled together. And so one of the things that I recognize, especially, and we'll talk about a little bit about the most recent trauma we've had, is that we need direct access. Our deputies and our employees deserve to know that they can go directly to the help without a lot of layers of bureaucracy. Right. And I think that happened, organically. It wasn't meant to cause any walls, but sometimes it does. And so I'm separating it. I'm leaving the outward in the investigative side, and I'm bringing that kind of under my fold direct report, because it is so important to me. Unfortunately, we had a deputy commit suicide just a little while ago. And that was very early on after I got elected. And so it brought more attention to the fact that we need to support our deputies. I wish we could have done more. It's one of those things that'll always kind of haunt me, I think. Of course. But I think I hope that in her honor, we will be able to continue to improve the program and really affect and support our deputies.
What do you think the biggest challenges are facing law enforcement today? Like, as far as like addressing, what would you think are?
So I think there's different levels, right? Because here locally we have our challenges. So for us here, traffic is a challenge. Right. That's a real challenge. Every day we get in our cars and getting from point A to point B. We have people who really, there has been a lot of lack of following the law when it comes to the road. And so one of the things that I have done is really beefed up on some of our traffic enforcement and educational side as well. Because I do believe that we have to go back to the basics of our job is to make sure that everyone is safe and secure. You should be able to get up, leave your home, go to work and or take the kids to school and go to the park and the movies and ice cream and never ever worry about safety. And, or if you never saw it and not even think about it, right? Isn't that
I mean, that would be amazing.
Right.
I mean,
well, you got to have set goals. You have to
that's
set
right.
goals.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So I think presence is important for us here in South Florida. I definitely want to increase the presence of uniformed patrol officers, deputies, so that people are seeing them on the road. I think that one, it helps deter crime.
Right.
That's number one. But number two, it is that engagement of one-on-one and creating those opportunities, once again. So I'm taking measures to do that. But, if I look at it big picture, retention is important in law enforcement in our profession. I do think that also there is the immigration piece nationally that is affecting South Florida. We are a community of immigrants, and how that translates into please don't call or don't feel that you shouldn't call the police if you are in fear, if you're a victim of a crime, if you're watching a crime. That is not our primary response. And we try to get this message across. Yes, we do have a job to do. And if someone has a detainer and has to be arrested because that is a legal act that we have to do, then we're going to do that. But that our primary response is not, 911, what's your immigration status? Right. That's not what we do. Right. And it's not going to be how we respond. But we understand that there's fear in our community and working through that has to be like a communication, right? So there's a lot I think that impacts us here in South Florida.
There's so much, and just hearing you talk about it, I'm getting overwhelmed because a lot of us think about the police when we're driving and going too fast, right? We think like, what I mean, when it crosses our mind, if we're in danger, if we need help. There are the more serious matters. I believe you were alluding to Director Parker, if I'm not mistaken.
So
if I remember his name.
So Director Parker did commit suicide as
years
well.
ago.
Yeah, he did. It was after he had retired, and Director Freddie Ramirez attempted suicide.
So I thought of Mr. Parker when you brought that up. You mentioned the most recent deputy, Felicia Kenzie Smith, just a few weeks ago. And I thank you again for doing this so shortly after her passing, because
thank you.
I know that's a lot. And then Freddie Ramirez, I think we have to bring up as well, because it had a lot to do with the election. It had a lot to do with maybe not a lot to do, but the position that you're in now. Yeah. So I imagine the importance of this is always right here when you're thinking about every single move, whether it's a traffic, issue or something much more serious.
Absolutely. And also recognizing that every decision that I'm making now in the position of sheriff, right? Of course, I'm affecting our community, but I'm affecting our deputies and establishing this office that they can, once again, kind of stand united behind, feel supported by us in command internally, so that they in turn can go out and do a great job for our community. Right. So it's definitely interlocking pieces, very fluid and moving. And, I just feel it's important to be very aware in my actions and what I'm doing and being very purposeful. So I'll give you an example. When Robin Kinsey Smith, when the incident occurred, I wrote an email out to the entire department to share with everyone, because one of the things I always felt was lacking with us sometimes is that communication. So we're wonderful in communicating outward to our community, but sometimes we're not so good internally, right? So I am trying very hard to have that community. It's not always perfect, but I am trying. And I said the words that she committed suicide in that email, and I think a lot of people were like, "Whoa."
I did a whoa. And
so you saw it.
I saw it, and it was a proud whoa because it was transparent.
Yes.
And we don't always get transparency from our leaders.
It's true.
Yeah, and also transparency, and hard conversations. It brings us to have these tough conversations. If we're not able to say it, and then how can we talk about it, and how do we help support? And I don't know, it was just kind of a moment of I made that conscious decision, and I hope it was the right one. It felt like the right one for me as the sheriff, and speaking to speaking to the troops.
So in the Miami-Dade sheriff, if a officer is going through something, where would they go? Where would
That's a great question. So we have definitely a lot of different places. We have our psychological support system, which actually has psychological support services that has counselors.
Okay.
There are therapists, then they can go directly to them. We also have a very robust chaplaincy program for, obviously faithful support as well. We have a peer-to-peer program for deputies who have been through difficult times themselves and have trained them, in conjunction with, are trained and now are able to support other deputies as well. And we are now expanding and reaching out to our retirees.
Oh, good.
Yes, because that's something that they expressed, that they really felt that they wanted to be more involved. And all of a sudden it was like a light bulb. It's like, what do you mean? Like, they want to help. We want to help them, of course. So we're looking at ways at how we can integrate them more into the current program. So that's something that's brand new and expanding. We have an app. So every deputy has the opportunity to download their app on the phone. It attaches them and connects them to the resources, the counselors, the chaplains, as well as obviously national level programs, of support in case they want to reach out and get support completely outside of the office of the sheriff.
And if I recall, you guys are doing something inside the cruisers, inside the vehicles, kind of like the
Yes.
change your oil reminder, but it's check on yourself.
That is correct. Absolutely correct. It is a sticker up on the windshield, and it will remind them that there is someone there to talk to always.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes.
Who do you go to for help? Who do you talk to? Do you use the app?
I do use the app.
I know.
I
got a
know.
lot on your plate.
My plate is full. That's a great question. I think in life, it's all about balance, right? And it's when things get out of balance that we feel that overwhelmness, sometimes. So for me right now, I do agree that work is, it's creeping up. But, I'm right now in a good place. I have a very strong foundation with my husband. My husband and I have been married for 19 years now. And we have a son together. He is almost 16 years old and driving.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But I try to get to church as often as I can. I have my my sisters and my brother, and my dad is still alive. My mom has passed; she had Alzheimer's and passed, so that was a difficult time in my life, right? Where, so I think that you just lean on the things that and you know what. As cliche as it sounds, it's okay to not be okay, and have a day and have a moment and have a week, whatever it is, and then find a way out of that path and get yourself back on your feet,
Let me ask you, have you guys worked on any policies or programs just specifically focused on PTSD or preventive support?
Yes. So we are actually working, he's going to kill me. I can't remember everything right now. But anyway, so it's a program that works with the brainwaves.
Oh.
Yes. So it's based on science-based, right? What they found on the military side, and now they're bringing it onto the first responder side, is that they can work on your brainwaves to help to relieve anxiety, PTSD, and a lot of people have had really great success with it. So now we're working to see if we can get it here and offer to the deputies at no cost through some state funding that has been allocated for this kind of, and for obviously anyone who might be interested in doing something a little bit more unconventional, but maybe with some of the same successes that others have had. So we're always, and I think that's the key, right? The key is that it's not a one size fits all.
Right.
And so it's important to have different options so that at the end of the day, every individual in their moment of crisis turns to what they feel most comfortable with, whether it's a peer-to-peer or their chaplain or, an appointment at psych services or an appointment for a therapy,
I could be wrong, but I know there's TTMS, there's EDMR.
That is correct. EDMR, the eye. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many.
Yeah, there are quite a few. Yeah.
We're hoping that we're reaching, and our goal is to reach a lot of the family members of first responders, specifically spouses, just to kind of be aware of changes in behavior. I know that your husband's a police officer. Carolyn and I both married to Miami-Dade firefighters. My dad was he's a retired Miami-Dade firefighter. How important do you think, from your experience, because I believe your father-in-law is retired as well, or former police.
Former sergeant.
How big of a role do the family members and the spouses play in all of this when it comes to awareness?
I would say it's like 1,000% if I could give it a number. And it's one of the things that we're also doing is making sure that we're focusing on those families from day one as we bring in and onboard new deputies and new employees, right? To let them know that this is a tough job. It's a tough career. And there are going to be times when they may need more support. And in turn, the family might need support and that we're there for them as well, that they're part of the equation, that we're not just looking at the individual employee, but the family as a whole. So I think it's so important. And honestly, all of us know that usually it's a close friend or a family member that tells you, hey, time out, something's going on. I think it's somebody who you love, someone who you trust, who sees that distress in you. And so by teaching the family that this could happen and that there's somewhere to go with it, because, that's really the key, that there are resources available, then we hope that we can address it quickly,
And you have those incentives, like you have like a family night or?
Yes, we do exactly that. A family night. And in that family night, and obviously the support psych services will come out and speak to everyone. We provide the contacts and all of that. We absolutely do. And we're constantly trying to find new ways where we can touch the families again. You know what I mean? Because you do that family, but then everyone goes off and whatever. And so a lot of the activities that we're doing at the districts, for example, we're very much encouraging everyone to bring their families too, right? If you're not working, just come by anyway. We had food trucks at South District a couple of weeks ago. I think it was last week. And it was really nice to see. There are 2 deputies who are married and their children, and they were on their time there and just as a family enjoying an event in the community based around, the office of the sheriff. And I thought, wow, that's really great, and we're here and we had all our resources out there as well. So
talking about families, you mentioned you have a 16-year-old son. We have teenagers as well. So we get it. We could do a whole show on just teenagers and them learning how to drive. As far as your son, I'm curious, would you encourage him to go into law enforcement when the time comes? I know we're a few years away.
I'm going to get put on the spot. Actually, I've always encouraged him, if he wants to serve the public, he should become a firefighter.
Everybody always says that.
Yeah.
Why firefighter versus police?
Because everybody loves a firefighter. Everyone loves that, everybody. Police, we get called when things are bad and ugly and, we're picking up pieces and sometimes so I just find that, and that's the mom.
I was going to say that's like the mom hat versus the sheriff hat.
Sure, of course. Of course. I love our profession. Love my profession, love our profession. I think we do amazing work and I'm impressed every day by someone when, now that I'm running around all over the county and I'm talking to so many deputies and whatever moment I get to just interact with them. And I'll tell you a story. I was going to a meeting at the courthouse, right? And I get there and we get on the elevator and a few of the deputies that were working the courthouse are now going up with me, right? So I was visiting the chief judge and they were like, hey, did you hear what he did today? And I was like, what'd you do today? And so he's just driving into work and he looks over and there's literally 2 individuals exchanging gunfire.
Oh, wow.
And he got out of his car at gunpoint. Not only did he take command of the scene, he got them both into custody and no one was hurt. No one, thank God. They had already cranked off some rounds. But he finished and then he got back in the car and he went to work.
Carried on with his day.
Yeah, exactly. What we do is amazing.
It is. Switch it off. All of a sudden it's like, let me go get coffee now. No big deal.
I know.
You hear heroic stories like that. And I know we've kind of been making light of it, but when you hear heroic stories like that, and then we hear people saying things like defund the police or among other things that we're not going to say on the show. Okay. When it comes to like moral injury, how do your deputies get past that or through that?
Yeah. I hope they're doing it using all the support that we provide and whatever works for them, whether it's exercise and just spending. But I'll tell you that's probably my biggest trauma, I think. It is
Yeah.
because I do get angry. Like, for me, my job is to make sure that my deputies have what they need to do the job to serve this community, and to do so well and to do so safely so that they can go home to their families. And so to have to fight that fight, it can be very frustrating because to me, that doesn't make sense. It just, all of us, like I said, we want that world where you get up and do your thing and you never think about a police officer because you're not worried and fearful. But how do we do that if we don't empower and support the actual deputies that are doing that job?
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. It's not just the physical violence.
Oh, yeah.
But there's much more to it.
There's a lot. And I am very grateful, though, that now we are talking about it, right? Because for so many years, I started in 1996, and to use a phrase that it was, suck it up, buttercup.
Right.
This is it. Move on. Let's go.
Yeah.
Next call. But that builds up. And, whether it's a crisis moment where you do something that you will regret, or if it's a slow damage to oneself through abuse with alcohol or drugs, it's still that same, harm to oneself because you're not dealing with what you need to deal with.
With the younger deputies coming in, because we've had a lot of conversations where it does seem to be a generational thing. We come from the suck it up buttercup generation.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. Like, I had to be gushing blood to get my father to do anything to help.
True.
Is it generational? Are you seeing it with the younger deputies coming on that they are much more open to getting help and decreasing the stigma, or not yet?
I do believe that there is an improvement in that area, and I do think it's also because we are talking about it, right?
Yeah,
so if we're if we're talking about it, then it must be okay to talk about. Because I know that it wasn't the case when I came up first on the job. That wasn't the case, but I still think there's a lot of room for improvement there. That's the honest truth. There's a lot of room for improvement. And whether it is maybe it is the retirees helping me get them past that, that's something I look forward to kind of rolling out.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, what is your vision for the future of Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office?
When I decided to run, it was really based on the fact that I just felt so strongly that this community deserves a sheriff's office that is really founded on integrity, professionalism, respect, and service, right? And being able to be in this position where we only get to do it one time. We only get to do it the first time, one time. And so for me, establishing that office that has that foundation so that hopefully we set the bar so high, it just kind of never comes down from that. And so I have a lot of work to do, and I get that a lot of it right now is the mechanics of making sure that I set things up for the future. And it's a lot of work, but it's okay. I signed up for it and I'm ready for that. But I look forward to really just kind of growing on things that I saw be successful over my professional career, and, maybe creating an entire line of succession for years and years to come of really amazing sheriffs that are going to continue that thought process.
Why do you think a sheriff matters? Because we went so long without one in Miami-Dade County.
Does it matter? It does matter. Yeah. It matters so much. So a lot of people ask me this question because it's hard to understand if you're not in the weeds. But before, as a police department, we were a small part of a very large wheel, right? A cog. And a lot of layers of bureaucracy. So even if we knew what we wanted to do as a department, getting to that was, very, very difficult. Think of it every single time, had to ask someone else for, and, it came out of an evolution of the change in local government, right? So we were first in 1966 when the last sheriff that we had was arrested for fraud and corruption. We created the system where it was an appointed a police director. But then local government changed. We went from a county manager to a mayor, and then a strong mayor. Yeah, which is what we currently have. And along the way, it just kept separating the ability for law enforcement to really take the lead on what we feel as a professional, what is best, right? So for me, now to be able to make a decision on what I believe is in the best interest of safety of this community and to be able to get it done is amazing, number one. And number two is also the impact I have on legislation, which I didn't really have before, right? So now when we recognize that there's a lapse in the laws and how we can enforce and make our community safer, I now have a very strong voice in getting that done at the state level and then bringing it back to Dade County. And we are the largest county in the state of Florida, and we have a really strong voice.
Yeah.
So, and I get to use it to help protect this county now.
We have a really strong
Amazing.
sheriff
Yes,
too.
we do.
And
So proud of you.
the two of us love that get it done
Yeah.
mentality.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's kind of like a motto these
Yeah.
days, right? Just get it done. Sheriff, thank you so much for being with us. We
Thank you.
appreciate your time and talking about things that aren't always fun to talk about.
No.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you.
Always. And we'll remind everybody who's watching always, if you see something, sound the alarm.
Save a life.
We'll see you next time.